Hey there, folks. Welcome to my storytelling corner. I'm Nancy Rivers, your guide to folk tales, thrilling mysteries, and all sorts of wild yarns. Stick around for today's tale, it's a good one. Picture this. Back in the old days, under the shadow of Big Green Mountain in rural Tennessee, there's a little place called Willow Creek. In this sleepy hollow lived the Harper family. You had two brothers, their mom and dad, all working together on a good dozen acres of farmland. Out there in that quiet mountain nook, the Harpers were the well-off folks. The older brother, Liam Harper, was a straight-shooting guy, honest as the day is long. He married a sweet, kind woman named Grace, and together they had a daughter, Lily Harper. Now, Liam's younger brother, Tommy Harper, hitched up with a gal named Sadie Jones. But those two young lovebirds couldn't make it work, fought like cats and dogs, and split up after a year. Tommy moved back in with Mom and Pop Harper, pitching in around the house. Then one fateful day, Lily was just 3 years old. Grace was finishing up chores like always. She grabbed a basket, packed some food, and headed out to the fields to bring lunch to Liam. After dropping off the grub, she'd stick around to help him tend the crops. But that day, while they were eating together out there, disaster struck. Up on the mountain, a massive boulder broke loose and came tumbling down. Liam, desperate to save his wife and little girl, shoved them out of the way and took off running. But that rock caught him. He didn't make it. Tommy Harper and Sadie, now stuck raising Lily like a pair of orphaned widows, couldn't keep up with the farming. They just didn't have it in them to tend the land or look after Mom and Pop Harper anymore. So they took back the fields and told Grace to bring little Lily to live with them. Now you'd think with a dozen acres, the family'd be set, plenty of food on the table and clothes on their backs. But Tommy and Sadie? They turned sour. That night, they blamed Liam's death on Grace, saying it was her fault for being out there with him. Those two, they didn't have a lick of love for their niece, Lily, not one bit. By noon the next day, after Mom and Pop Harper passed on, Uncle Tommy and Aunt Sadie took over. They treated Grace and Lily like hired help, worse than that really. If either of them slipped up even a little, it'd be yelling, smacks, and no supper. They didn't even give them a decent place to sleep, just stuck them in a rickety old shed out back, drafty and falling apart. Grace, bless her gentle soul, took it all in stride. She just wanted Lily to grow up safe and sound, so she kept her head down and bore it quietly. All she hoped was that one day, Lily'd find a good family to marry into, make all the suffering they'd endured together worth it. More than a decade rolled by, and that little 3-year-old Lily turned 15. She grew up into a real beauty, fair skin, bright eyes, the kind of girl who'd turn heads all over Willow Creek and beyond. Folks from 10 miles around said she was one in a million. Plenty of suitors came knocking, eager to propose. But Lily, loyal as she was, knew what marriage might mean. She couldn't bear the thought of leaving her mom behind to fend for herself. So she laid it out plain to the matchmakers: either the guy moves in with us, or I'm bringing Mom along to live with him, no ifs, ands, or buts. Thing is, Lily's conditions threw a wrench in the works for a lot of folks. On top of that, it riled up Tommy and Sadie something fierce, especially Sadie. She got real antsy, worrying that if Lily invited some fella to move in, he'd start eyeing up their land down the road. One night, after Lily got back from gathering herbs up on the mountain, she hadn't even set her basket down when she overheard her mom and Sadie jawing in the kitchen. It struck her as odd. Grace always cooked the meals, and they ate what was ready. Sadie hardly ever stepped foot in there. Curious, Lily crept closer to eavesdrop. She caught Sadie saying, "Grace, Lily ain't a kid anymore. She's old enough to tie the knot. My nephew, Jake Jones, has taken a shine to her. Reckon it's a match made in heaven, a blessing she don't deserve." Now Jake Jones, Sadie's nephew, was a lazy good-for-nothing, and elect to boot. He was always pestering girls around town, married or not. Whenever he swung by the Harpers, he'd leer at Lily with squinty eyes, sometimes even getting handsy. Sadie figured Jake, pushing 20, ought to settle down soon, so she was in no rush. Lily, though, brushed it off polite-like, saying, "Thanks for the thought, Aunt Sadie, but Lily's still young. No hurry to wed, let's talk in a few years." Sadie smirked, cold as ice, and snapped, "Young? She's 15 already. What, you expect me to feed her forever? If she marries Jake, we've already kissed and made up with him. Don't worry, we won't treat you bad." Grace held firm, saying they'd wait, but Sadie, fed up with the refusals, barked, "Don't gimme that runaround, Grace. Here's the deal. You've got 3 days to think it over. Say no, and you're both out on your ears. Grace shot back, "You can't talk to us like that, Sadie. This land's part Harper too, Lily and I got a share." Even with her soft nature, the threat of getting kicked out lit a fire in her. But Tommy stormed in, hollering, "You got the nerve to talk land, Grace? All these years, you've eaten my food, slept under my roof. Think that's free? Especially you. If you hadn't taken lunch out to Liam that day, would he be dead under that rock?" Lily overheard it all, and it hit her like a ton of bricks. She was steaming mad. All these years, if Grace hadn't held her back, she'd have taken her mom and bolted from this sorry excuse of a home. To think these two vipers wanted to force her into marrying Jake, she wasn't having it. Right then, Lily burst in, grabbed Grace mid-cooking, and said, "Mom, let's go. We're leaving this place. Land or no land, I've got hands and feet, I'll take care of you." Grace hesitated, scared, and stammered, "Lily, we can't just up and leave." "Why not?" Lily pressed, puzzled. Sadie sneered from the sidelines, "Go on then, where you headed?" "Out of my house, you'll be sleeping in a ditch." Lily ignored her, dragging Grace to the shed where they slept. They started packing what little they had, ready to hit the road. But Sadie charged in, hands on hips, fuming, "Those things you're taking, which one ain't I paid for? You wanna leave? Fine, but you're not taking a darn thing." Lily didn't flinch. "Fine, keep it all. You ever give us anything worth a dime? Mom, let's go." With that, she pulled Grace out of the shed, past the village gate. Grace, not wanting the neighbors to gawk, stayed quiet. But at the edge of Willow Creek, tears welled up as she whispered, "Lily, if we leave Tommy and Sadie's, how'll we live? Where'll we even sleep tonight?" Lily, wiping her own tears, said, "They've bullied us long enough, Mom. Treating us like dirt was bad enough. Now they want to pawn me off to Jake? I'd rather die than say yes." Sadie said we'd end up in a ditch? "Well, I've been up the mountain picking herbs and found a cave at the foothills. It's decent enough. We can make it work for the two of us." Grace sighed deep, saying, "Lily, it's my fault. I've been too soft, dragging you down with me. A night in a cave's one thing, but living there? It's empty, no bed, no nothing." Lily, tough as nails, replied, "Don't worry, Mom. I've sold herbs to the pharmacy in town, got some cash coming. We're done with Tommy and Sadie, so that money's ours now. It's summer, not too cold. I'll cut some grass for a bed, buy a few blankets, some pots and pans. We'll eat, we'll sleep, it'll beat that leaky shed at their place any day. What do you say?" About half an hour later, Lily and Grace made it to the cave. Just like Lily said, it wasn't big, but it'd do for the two of them. Lily didn't waste a minute, dropped her basket, grabbed a little hoe, and smoothed out the cave's entrance. Then she took a sickle, cut a heap of dry grass, and piled it into a makeshift bed. She chopped some branches to block the wind, and while she was at it, picked some wild berries. Side by side with Grace, they settled in. That night, the poor pair bunked down in their new digs. Sure, the cave was rough around the edges, but it wasn't much worse than the drafty shed they'd left behind. Grace kept sighing, murmuring apologies, but they made it through. Come morning, Lily turned to Grace and said, "Mom, I'm heading to the pharmacy in town. Once I cash in those herbs, we can spruce up this place, make it a real home. Eat some of them berries for now, we'll have a proper meal by noon." Grace watched her girl, sensible as ever, and felt a pang. She wanted to beg Lily to go back, make peace with Tommy and Sadie, and stay put. But the second she thought of them trying to hitch Lily to Jake, she clamped her mouth shut. All she said was, "Lily, you head out and come back quick, stay safe on the road." Lily nodded, feeling lighter than ever. No more tiptoeing around Sadie's glares or dodging Jake's creepy stares, just her and her mom, free at last. When Lily got to the pharmacy and handed over her latest haul to Mr. Finch, the owner, she asked for all the money she was owed. But Finch scratched his head and said, "Lily, your aunt just came by and took every cent you had coming." Sweat beaded on Lily's forehead. No money? They'd be stuck sleeping on grass with nothing to cook or eat, living like wild folks. Tears stung her eyes, but she held it together, hefting her herb-filled basket. "Mr. Finch," she said, "these herbs I brought today, pay me cash for 'em. I need it bad." Finch, a good egg, not only paid her for the new batch but tossed in an extra $10. Lily lit up, thanking him profusely. Deduct it from my next haul, she added, then slung her basket over her shoulder and headed out with the cash. That money'd only buy 2 days' worth of grub, not near enough for pots, pans, or bedding. Lily figured they'd have to build up slow. On her way back, she found Grace chatting with some village women outside the cave. Grace saw her coming and rushed over, beaming, "Lily, don't you worry no more. These kind ladies felt sorry for us, brought us pots, pans, even some quilts. We're set now." Lily looked at the women pitching in and couldn't hold back tears. She ran up, thanking each one. A lady piped up, "Lily, what's to thank? You've helped us plenty, fetching remedies from town when we're sick, picking herbs for headaches. We ought to thank you. This stuff's just old home goods, hope you don't mind." Another chimed in, "You should have left Tommy and Sadie ages ago, they're pure mean. Grace put up with them way too long." One woman added, "No kidding, Lily, no need to thank us. Few years back, my boy snuck up the mountain for berries, got bit by a snake. If you hadn't found him, he'd be gone. We owe you." The ladies kept talking, then took off, leaving Grace and Lily grateful as all get out. They started fixing up their cave home, and Grace suddenly asked, "Lily, I know you won't marry Jake, and I'm behind you. But what kind of fella do you want to wed someday?" Lily thought a spell and said, "Mom, I ain't mulled it over much. If I could pick, I'd want a man who loves me true, loves you too. Most of all, he's gotta respect you like I do, not like Jake." "You're a good kid, Lily," Grace said, tearing up. "It's my fault you're stuck with me." She turned away to cook some porridge, hiding her face so Lily wouldn't see her cry. So, Lily and Grace settled into that cave like it was home. They got by with what the village ladies gave them: pots, quilts, the works. Lily quit the heavy chores she used to do for Tommy and Sadie, focusing instead on picking herbs every day. Grace took up sewing, mending clothes to chip in some extra cash. It wasn't easy, only they knew the grit it took, but for Lily, it beat the old days hands down. Having her mom safe and loved was all she needed. Still, the cave was dark and damp, and Grace worried herself sick over it. After a few days, she came down with something bad. The herb money ran dry, and her sickness didn't let up, it just got worse. Lily knew her mom's illness couldn't wait. No cash left though, she even thought about swallowing her pride and asking Tommy for a loan. But picturing Sadie's smug face shut that idea down fast. Panicked, she ran to Doc Miller in town, begging for advice on herbs that might help. Doc pulled out a tattered old book, pointing out a rare plant, name, shape, the whole bit. Problem was, it only grew deep in the mountains, where snakes and bears roamed. "Don't go, Lily," he warned. "It's dangerous, and that herb's half legend. I've never seen it myself. You might not find it." But Lily didn't care. For her mom, she'd risk it all. She told Grace to rest up, slung her basket on her back, and bolted for the wild hills. Lily barely made it to the mountain's edge when she heard rustling in the brush, then a faint cry for help. She followed the sound and found an old woman sprawled in a pit, hurt bad. Looking around, Lily figured it quick: the lady'd stumbled into a hunter's trap. Why an old-timer was out here alone, she couldn't guess, but saving her came first. "Hang on, ma'am," Lily called down. "I'll get you out, hold tight." She hacked a vine, tied it to a tree, and climbed down. It took all she had, but she hauled the woman up. Turned out, she'd been scraped up by bamboo stakes in the trap. Lily sat her down, found some herbs, chewed them into a paste, and patched her up, bandaging the wounds tight. Once the old woman was squared away, Lily asked, "Ma'am, you're no spring chicken. Why are you out here alone, deep in these woods? Where's your kin?" The lady sighed, "Thanks for saving me, girl. Thought these old bones were done for, stuck in that hole. It's just me and my grandson, Caleb Holt, back home. He's real sick, bad off, and we're too poor for a doctor. Heard there's a plant up here that could cure him, so I came looking. I found it, but on my way back, fretting over him, I didn't watch my step and fell in." Lily peeked at the herbs the woman clutched. Sure enough, they matched Doc's book. If she could snag that, Grace'd be saved. "Ma'am," Lily said, "I need that herb too. Where'd you find it?" The old woman frowned. "Girl, my Caleb's waiting on this to live, but my leg's shot, I can't walk. Could you carry me home? I've got enough herb left to share, save you the trip deeper in." Lily didn't hesitate. She hoisted the lady onto her back and trudged down the mountain. On the way, the woman asked, "What's a young thing like you doing out here?" Lily spilled it all: Grace's sickness, her hunt for the cure. "You're a good daughter," the lady said. "Lucky thing, my Caleb's got the same ailment as your mom. This herb'll fix 'em both." Half an hour later, soaked in sweat, Lily got her to a rundown shack. Inside, a pale, handsome young fella lay unconscious. Caleb Holt, no doubt. The old woman teared up. "Lily, my leg's no good. Please brew this herb quick. I'm scared Caleb won't make it." Lily didn't waste a second. She followed the old woman's instructions, darting to the kitchen to brew the herb. The lady sat by Caleb's bed, helping Lily spoon the medicine into his mouth. Funny thing, barely time for a cup of tea to cool, and Caleb's eyes fluttered open. His color came back, and he even staggered to his feet, looking miles better. Could that old plant really be some kind of miracle cure? Lily grabbed the leftover herbs, itching to get home to Grace, but the woman stopped her. "Hold up, why's my boy staring at you like that? Caleb, say thank you. If it weren't for her, you'd be a goner." Caleb piped up quick, "Ma'am, I owe you big time. Anything you need, I'll go through hell or high water to help, no questions asked." Lily sized Caleb up: ragged clothes, worn-out face. He didn't look like a farmer, more like a broke scholar maybe. Something about him tugged at her memory, but she couldn't place it. His eyes on her, though, stirred something funny, made her cheeks flush and her heart skip. She shook it off. Grace needed her, and the day was slipping away. It'd be dark soon if she didn't hustle. "Gotta go," she said, nodding to the pair. "Take care, y'all." But the old woman grabbed her arm. "Lily, it's late. Stay for supper, head back tomorrow. Your mom's sickness won't turn worse overnight." "No can do," Lily shot back. "Mom's alone and sick. How could I rest easy? Please, let me by." She was antsy to get moving. The woman pressed, "Lily, I'm saying this for your own good. Don't go home tonight. You and your mom are in danger if you do. Trust me." Lily froze. "What are you talking about, ma'am? Someone's after us." "If it's true," she said, "I gotta get back. If anything happens to Mom, I'm done for." She sidestepped the lady and bolted for the yard. Caleb stepped up, blocking her. "Listen to Grandma, please. She means it, she's looking out for you." Lily's gut twisted. Why were these two so dead set on keeping her here? Didn't they get how a daughter'd feel? Maybe they had some scheme up their sleeves. "Caleb," she said, "you seem decent, book-smart, even. You ought to know right from wrong. My mom's sick, why'd I stay? Move or I'll scream." The old woman saw Caleb's face tighten, caught between a rock and a hard place. "Let her go," she sighed. "Lily, we just wanted to thank you. Be safe out there." "You too," Lily tossed back, then hightailed it out of there. All the way home, her mind churned over the woman's words. Danger for her and Grace? What did that mean? Was it real, or just spook talk to keep her put? The sun dipped low as she finally reached the cave. Grace was still kicking, and Lily's heart unclenched. She whipped up the herb brew fast, feeding it to her mom. "Drink this, Mom, it'll fix you up quick," she said, dodging Grace's questions about where she got it. "Just traded some herbs in town," she fibbed, not wanting her to fret. Sure enough, after sipping the medicine, Grace perked up, her gaunt face flushed pink again. Both of them were over the moon. Lily cooked some porridge, and they ate supper together, then stretched out on their rough grass bed to chat. Grace hugged her tight, saying, "Lily, I'm feeling good now. I'll sew more, save up some cash. Maybe we can get someone to build us a proper shack, better end this cave. Oh, and Sadie came by today, asking us to move back. I turned her down, she don't mean well." Lily teared up. "Mom, I'm the one who ain't good enough, letting you suffer with me. Marriage can wait, and Sadie? I'm done with her. All I want's to take care of you forever. I'm beat, let's sleep." But then, a weird smell hit her nose, and her head swam. Grace was already out cold, and Lily's eyes shut against her will. When Lily's eyes popped open, she jolted upright. The cave, pitch black before, flickered with torchlight. There stood the old woman and Caleb from earlier, but that wasn't the half of it. Tommy, Sadie, and Jake, Sadie's slimy nephew, were kneeling on the ground, tied up with rope, begging the old lady for mercy. Sadie spotted Lily awake and wailed, "Lily, my sweet niece, help us. Tell this old hag and her boy to let us go." Before Lily could even ask what in tarnation was happening, the woman snapped, "Let you go? If we hadn't shown up, that no-good Jake would have ruined Lily's honor by now, forcing her to marry him. Then you'd be rid of her and her mom, claiming the land for yourselves." "Ma'am, I'm lost here, what's going on?" Lily stammered. The old woman glared at the trio. These snakes had a plan. They figured after you and Grace took off, you'd hit rock bottom and come crawling back. Then they'd pawn you off to Jake. But half a month passed, and you didn't budge. Jake kept hounding Sadie, "When's Lily gonna be mine?" Till she hatched a scheme. While you were out picking herbs, they snuck in here, slipped something in your supper to knock you out. Jake was gonna take you off, and with Grace so sick, they'd let her waste away, call it a mystery death. No loose ends, no worries for them. Lily's jaw dropped, tears spilling as the betrayal sank in. "They treated us like dirt all these years," Lily choked out, "and now this? Trying to wreck my life and kill my mom? Blood don't mean a thing to them, I'm done. Send them to the law." The old woman nodded, and the three got hauled off to the county courthouse. The judge heard the whole rotten story, Tommy, Sadie, and Jake's plot, and didn't blink. He slammed his gavel, 40 lashes each, then banishment to some godforsaken outpost up north. The Harperland got split, half going to Grace and Lily fair and square. After it all shook out, Lily and Grace climbed the mountain to find the old woman and Caleb, thanking them for saving their hides. Up there, Lily couldn't help asking, "Ma'am, how'd you know to come to the cave that night? And how'd you get Tommy and Sadie to heal so easy?" The woman chuckled, turning to Caleb. "Your wish is granted, boy, I've done my part. You two go way back, just took some bumpy roads to meet again. You're both good kids caught in bad luck. Good folks get good ends, you'll see." With that, she vanished, poof like smoke. Lily blinked, staring at Caleb, who felt more familiar by the second. "Lily," he said, "remember years ago, helping a kid at the pharmacy?" It hit her. When she was 10, she'd gone herb picking with Grace, sold him in town, and found a boy her age crying outside the shop. That boy, Caleb, said some thief swiped the cash he'd scraped together for his mom's medicine. Lily handed him her earnings from the herbs, but when she got home empty-handed, Sadie beat her black and blue, left her hungry all day. That kid was Caleb. He'd come from money once, smart, book-learned, but his dad's business tanked, then he died. His mom fell sick from the grief, and when the medicine money got stolen, Lily's kindness kept him going. He never forgot her, always poking around the pharmacy hoping to spot her again. Years later, his mom passed, and he sold their house to bury her, building a shack with the leftovers. He chopped wood, studied hard, even passed some exams, turned into a real scholar. Caleb had another tale up his sleeve. One day, up on the mountain, he'd stumbled across a white fox caught in a hunter's trap. Being the soft-hearted sort, he freed it and let it scamper off. Turns out, that fox was the old woman, or something like her. To pay him back, she asked what he wanted most. Caleb said he'd been hunting for that girl who helped him way back when, didn't even know her name, just that she'd saved him in a pinch. He'd been too shy to ask, too rushed to get his mom's medicine. The fox lady tracked Lily down, knowing she'd head into the mountains for Grace's cure, and that danger waited back home. She set it all up to test Lily's heart and bring them together. See, Lily and Caleb had crossed paths as kids, parted ways, and grown up tough. Now fate, or a fox, tied them back together. They hit it off natural-like, and before long, they got hitched. Lily rented out their half of the Harperland, and Caleb settled down to study at home. Years later, he aced the big exams, landed a government job, some high-up post helping folks out. He and Lily were tight as could be, treating each other with respect, raising kids of their own. Grace, ever the dutiful mom, lived out her days happy and cared for. That's the end of their yarn, folks. A rough start, but a sweet finish. Alright, y'all, that wraps up the first tale. Hope you liked it. I'm Nancy Rivers, and I've got another one brewing for you, don't miss it. I reckon you're hooked after that first go-round. Next up's a folk story called The Man Who Rode His Cow to a Funeral. Picture this, a fella's cow's sweating bullets on the road, and an old-timer says, son, your cow's been had. In Chestnut Hollow, Kentucky, there's a guy named Dwight Truman. Not long ago, he had a baby boy. Local custom says you gotta find a sky kin for a newborn, somebody to bless him with luck. But ain't nobody in town keen to sign up. So what's a sky kin? It's like picking a godparent, someone to stand in as extra family, so the kids got more folks to lean on growing up. More kin, more paths, they say. You'd figure Dwight's family, flush with cash, hundreds of acres, farms, shops in town, wouldn't have trouble finding takers. But when word got out Dwight Truman was looking for a sky kin, folks scattered like roaches in the light. Why? 'Cause Dwight's a skinflint, a mean cuss who'd squeeze a nickel till it squealed. Even when his old man was dying, begging for a bowl of oatmeal, Dwight wouldn't spare it, said it'd be a waste on a dead man walking. Fed him plain water instead. Word spread, and folks darn near broke his back with dirty looks. Dwight didn't care one bit, strutted around proud, saying his penny pinching made him rich, and everybody else was just jealous. If he was that tight with his own dad, you can bet he was worse with kin. Payday for the help? He'd dock their wages every which way, claiming they owed him. Workers at the Truman place, farmhands, craftsmen, cursed his name. Had to bring their own grub, sleep in a stinking barn out back. Nobody'd work for him, lest their folks had been tied to the Trumans for generations, too broke to run. So when Dwight went hunting for a sky kin, folks balked. Tie yourself to that miser? You'd get nothing but a boot out the door when trouble hit, no help, no how. Dwight's boy turned one, and still no sky kin stepped up. At first, he shrugged it off, didn't want to bother. Figured anyone signing on would just mooch off his hard-earned cash, and that loss outweighed the gain. But then his kid got sick, real bad, nearly died. Now Dwight's pacing his fancy parlor, watching the little tyke waste away, and a gnawing thought creeps in. Did I skip the sky kin and bring this curse on my boy? Right then, Miss Ellie, wife of old Sam Tate, knocks on the door. Sam's over 60, been a loyal hand at the Truman place forever, practically family to Dwight's late dad. The old man treated Sam like a brother, looked out for him. But when Dwight took over, he didn't give a lick, kicked Sam down to slopping hogs soon as his pa's bones went cold. Sam Tate was a sorry sight these days, worn out from dirty back-breaking work. He shuffles in, bowing low, and says, "Mr. Dwight, heard your little one's sick again. Reckon it's 'cause he ain't got a sky kin yet. I know a family, they'd take the job." Dwight's eyes light up like a kid at Christmas. Dropping his usual sneer, he softens, "Sam, you serious? You can hook me up with a sky kin." Sam's throat catches. Been years since Dwight called him anything but "hey you." He wipes his eyes with a sleeve and nods, "Yes sir, I'll get it done." He hobbles off, not showing up again till noon the next day. When he does, he's grinning ear to ear, "They're in, just gotta show respect. Take your boy over to their place yourself." Turns out, Sam's got a distant nephew, Ben Tate, living out in the sticks. Ben's got 100 acres of good dirt and runs a little diner in town called the Lucky Spoon. It's small but packed daily. Folks can't get enough of his stewed beans, tender as butter. Dwight hears this and figures Ben's a decent match, not as rich as him, but solid. He picks a lucky day, and with Sam leading the way, they haul the kid out to Ben's spread. Ben steps out, cradling his own baby girl, and they swap greetings, gifts too, per tradition. Ben's girl's 52 days older, so she's the big sister, making Dwight's boy the little brother. They jaw a bit, and by noon, they're sipping whiskey, laughing like old pals. Ben's in high spirits, offhandedly mentioning he once learned checkers from a big shot player. Dwight perks up, loves the game since he was knee-high, fancies himself a hotshot. Ain't many round Chestnut Hollow can keep up with him. "Well Ben," he says, "how about you swing by tomorrow and give me some pointers? Don't hold back now, we're kin." Ben tips his glass, grinning. Back home, Dwight digs out his checkerboard, studying it late. If Ben's got real chops, taught by a pro, this could be a challenge. He don't want to lose, not after just tying the knot with the Tates. Next day, he hitches up his prize cow, big burly beast he paid top dollar for, and rides it over to Ben's, ready for a showdown. Ben greets him warm, sets out tea and apples, lights some cedar incense. They settle in the study, checkers squared up. Halfway through, Dwight's face sours, not 'cause Ben's too good, but 'cause he's awful. Worst player Dwight's ever seen, moves so bad they stink. How's this guy a prose student? Dwight can't figure it. But then it hits him, he's a cheapskate at home. Cooks get pennies, meals are cabbage and scraps. Ben's place, though? Fine whiskey, hearty food. Yesterday's supper beat anything Dwight's tasted in years. His scheming side kicks in. If he keeps coming to play, he can eat like a king. They're skykin now, Ben won't turn him away. So he dumps down his game, letting Ben win a few, just to keep him hooked. Dwight and Ben played 6 rounds that day. Ben took 4, Dwight 2. Come noon, Dwight made a show of heading out, but Ben, puffed up from winning, insisted he stay for lunch. The table was loaded, aged bourbon, cold ham, the works. Dwight raised his glass. Ben, you've got the master's touch, no lie. Keep schooling me, huh? Ben laughed. We're kin now, drop by any time to practice. Dwight rode home full and smug. Next day he was back, cow in tow, letting Ben trounce him again, armor left wide open. He stayed for supper, praising Ben's skill while moaning about his own sorry game, vowing to come learn regular. 3 months flew by, Dwight showing up like clockwork, mooching meals and losing on purpose. Ben's farm sat smack in the village, so Dwight's constant visits didn't go unnoticed. Folks saw him ride in on that cow, figure he was there for checkers, and snickered behind their hands. There's Dwight, leeching off Ben again, they'd mutter. Ben was a stand-up guy, always helped a neighbor in a pinch, so some warned him, watch out for Dwight, he's using you. Ben brushed it off. My sky kin? Nah, he wouldn't pull that on family. Villagers shook their heads. Ben was too trusting. Word spread fast, and soon it hit Dwight's ears. He didn't flinch, grinned instead. To him, Ben was a soft touch, ripe for the picking. If folks saw through him, he'd just lean harder, milk it dry. One day, Dwight rolled up as usual, tying his cow out back to graze. He and Ben were mid-game when a familiar face, little Joey, the gatekeeper's kid from Dwight's cousin Vernon's place, burst in, red-eyed. Mr. Dwight, he gasped, my pa says old Vernon's passed. You're wanted at the funeral feast. Dwight groaned. There went Ben's bourbon, but a death's a big deal, so he couldn't skip. Ben called a farmhand to fetch the cow, but the kid came back sheepish. Cart's busted, axles shot. Dwight cursed under his breath, climbed on the cow bareback, and spurred it toward town. That beast was his pride, strong as an ox, usually marched like a champ. But today it dragged, no matter how hard he whipped it. Dwight laid into the cow, desperate to speed up. Couldn't be late, Miss Vernon's funeral, and the family'd skin him alive. They still held a grudge from when he wouldn't spare oatmeal for his dying pa. A no-show now'd tank his reputation and business. Normally, that cow could haul like a mule, but today it was sweating buckets, huffing halfway to town. No amount of hollering budged it, it just stopped cold. Then, out of the woods steps an old fellow with a cane, looking parched. Son, he croaked, spare some water? Dwight glanced at him, and something, maybe his pa's ghost in those tired eyes, softened him. He handed over his canteen. The old man drank deep, sighed relief, and handed it back. That old-timer was a herb picker, caught out without water in the scorching hills, nearly keeled over till Dwight came along. After returning the canteen, he squinted at Dwight, then busted out laughing. What's so funny, old man? Dwight snapped, already mad about the cow and now this. You're Dwight Truman, the tightwad, ain't ya? Who don't know you round here? The man cackled. Dwight bristled. I give you water, and you mock me? I oughta drag you to the sheriff. The old fella snorted. Borrowed your water, sure, but I'm here to warn you. Don't wanna hear it? I'll skedaddle. Dwight cooled off, blocking his path. All right, I was hot-headed. Sorry. What's the word? The man pointed at the cow, dripping sweat, and said, Your cow's been played, son. Dwight and the old man sat in the shade, the cow panting nearby. Here's the scoop, the picker said. Ben Tate's diner, the Lucky Spoon, runs on them stewed beans, 5 bushels a day tops. But ever since you started showing up, business doubled. After you'd eat and head out, Ben'd sneak your cow from the cart, have his boys hitch it to the grindstone. That beast'd churn out 8 bushels of beans daily, no sweat, 'cept today. Vernon croaked sudden-like, and they didn't get it rested in time. Halfway here, it's tuckered out. Dwight's jaw dropped. Ben's honest, my sky kin. Why'd he pull that? The old man smirked. Kin don't come eat your food every day, do they? You've been fleecing him. Don't act shocked he turned the tables. The old fella shouldered his basket. I've said my piece, deal with it. Folks gotta play straight with each other. You scheme first, don't cry when you're the mark. He shuffled off, leaving Dwight stunned. He didn't stew long though, anger boiled up instead. Ben Tate, you sly dog, he muttered. Using me like that? Wait till I get back from Vernon's funeral, I'll wipe that checkerboard with you, leave you begging to quit. The cow, rested a spell, perked up enough to move. Dwight climbed on and rode into town, making it just before the funeral feast kicked off. That night, stewing at home, he sent for Sam Tate to give him an earful, blame him for hooking up this rotten Skykin deal. The hired help came back empty-handed. Sam's gone, sir, they said. Quit when your pa passed. Free to walk any time. Dwight's heart thumped. Something felt off, bad off. Next morning, he saddled the cow and rode out to Ben's, ready to settle scores. Near the market, a crowd buzzed. Curious, Dwight asked a passerby what's up. Governor's hunting a checkers champ for his staff, the man said. Towns all over are holding matches. Win or draw, you're in the running. Dwight's ears pricked. He'd never cracked a book for fame, but checkers? That was his shot to shine, maybe honor the Truman name. He hopped off the cow, elbowed through, and signed up, only to find the match already done. Up on the stage stood Ben Tate, cool as you please, with the judge handing him a pass plaque, candidate material. A helper pinned a red flower on him, set him up to parade through town on horseback, all proud. Dwight gaped. Ben? That lousy player? How's he a contender? A fella nearby rolled his eyes. Sheriff ran the match himself. 3 rounds, fair and square. Ben swept them all. You calling us blind? Then 2 figures stepped out, the sheriff and, Lord help us, Sam Tate, chatting like buddies. They climbed into a fancy carriage and rolled off. Sam glanced back, spotted Dwight, and whispered to the sheriff before heading his way. The crowd murmured, and Dwight caught snatches, enough to make his blood run cold. Sam Tate strolled up, calm as a summer creek, while Dwight stood there, jaw tight. Reckon you've figured me out by now, Mr. Dwight, Sam said. I stuck around all these years serving your pa, saved up a bit, and opened the lucky spoon with my boy Ben. Stayed on to repay your old man's kindness, but watching you turn folks sour, kin and all, cut deep. So me and Ben cooked up a little play to teach you a lesson. Dwight's head spun as it clicked. Ben wasn't no checkerboard dunce. He'd been sandbagging, losing on purpose. All to use Dwight's cow for the grindstone, flip his own game back on him. Sam set the trap to show Dwight what greed gets you, small wins, big losses. Dwight broke out in a cold sweat, the sting hitting hard. He'd been outfoxed, and the taste was bitter. That day burned a mark. He swore off chasing cheap gains. From then on, he turned over a new leaf, treating folks decent, starting with Ben. They patched up their Skykin bond, made it real this time. Story's done, y'all. Dwight went from miser to mensch, and Ben got his due. A hard road, but a good end. Well folks, that's all she wrote. Hope you enjoyed these yarns I spun for ya. I'm Nancy Rivers, signing off. If you liked what you heard, drop a note below, give a holler, and pass it round. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time with another tale to tell.